Hey, hello, and welcome to the unplanned and unexpected epilogue to the Truth Files series. So, this is one of those inspired hits that I got, and then I checked it out with some of the people who have been following this journey along, asked if an epilogue might be a welcome addition, and it was a resounding yes. Like, get on it, lady. So, here we are. So first things first, one of the things you'll notice is a totally different background. So the logistics are that I am back in Canada now, back on Vancouver Island. So it's about mid-November now, and I landed back on the island mid-September, September 12th to be exact. And for the next couple of weeks, I stayed at the little apartment, the little bachelor suite that my husband was in. So that was very close quarters for reuniting, which was lovely. It was good. It's kind of like staying in a little cabin, right? A little love nest. So it was really lovely. And then while I had been away, my husband Jason was taking care of all the details to find a new place. And so he was able to secure this place in a brand new apartment that just matches all of the things that we were looking for. So that's where I am settled into, and it's a really lovely space. Um, since coming to the island, like when we left Saskatchewan and came to the island, we like sold a home. We'd been homeowners for like 20 years, came out here, and because we didn't know where or like where we were going to settle or if we were going to settle here, we had just been renting. So we rented a couple years in Nanaimo and then came to Parksville, which was closer to where Jason was working, and had just been renting. So this is the third building that we've been in, and like they say, three times the charm, so third time's the charm, and it's been great. I mean, not only is the layout excellent there, it was built and run by a property management company, and so there are just so many things and amenities. Like they've got it dialed in. It's no different than if you go to a high-end hotel and they've got everything dialed in for you, the whole experience. That's what it's like here. So lots of amenities, lots of things that are just really thoughtful touches and very much a community feel. They really emphasize community and it really shows. So anyways, that's the logistics. I've landed back here. And so we moved in. So I said we spent a couple of weeks in kind of little bachelor suite cabin kind of situation, and then moved in here at the very beginning of October. So we've now been in here for 6 weeks, and I'm really enjoying the space. Literally across the street is a grocery store. So again, we've got amenities very close by. And I was able to get back into my gym and all of the people around here that I really enjoyed and missed. So it's been really good in terms of getting back to, coming home. It's been really good. I'm kind of downplaying that a little bit. It's been excellent. And because it was really, I mean, I spent probably the first 2 or 3 weeks just so grateful. Like that's all I kept saying. Like I was grateful just to be able to understand the conversations when I would go into a coffee shop or the grocery store. Like just to be able, it's like getting your hearing back after being deaf for a long period of time or not being able to hear, like knock on wood. It was just like, oh my God, it's kind of like the entire world opens up to you again of, wow, this is incredible that I can actually understand what's happening around me. Like I felt a part of um, life again, a part of society again, which felt really good. I hadn't realized how much I'd been missing it. The temperature, oh my God, to not be sweating 24/7, to not, just in the way that in Saskatchewan, the cold is dangerous and you kind of have to guard against the cold here. Or I mean, but in Costa Rica, the heat was kind of dangerous. I felt like I was constantly guarding against the heat. And so it felt and it feels really good to be not sticky and sweaty and kind of at the mercy of the climate so much. So that feels really good. Just being back around infrastructure and things that run smoothly, like sidewalks and traffic lights and paved roads. Like it's just the marvels of modern conveniences. Just things that you take for granted, and relationships and connections that have already been formed here, and getting to come back to those, and like having really big welcomes from people, and all of those kind of things have been really, really lovely. And the biggest thing, and I've said this like over and over and over again, is I'm just so thankful. I don't know how many times I said I don't think I will ever complain another day in my life, like ever again. And I know that no country is perfect. I know we've got our own foibles and silly things that happen and problems and all of that. But it was truly a matter of I will take these problems. Thank you. This is just fine. I will take these problems any day. And so that realization has been really beautiful, because I mean, it's put me in a state of gratitude over the smallest things, like just like a continuous state of gratitude. And added to that, that this really is like probably one of the most beautiful places in our country, just in general. And I found out somebody referred to the island as the California of Canada, which is kind of funny because it is like the warmest place, one of the warmest places in the entire country. And it's beautiful. Like it is so beautiful here. It's eye candy, particularly the area that I'm in. It's kind of like as you start going further south on the island, it starts to get quite a bit more busy and congested, but like overall, it's eye candy here. It's gorgeous. Forests and trails and mountains and oceans. Like it's pretty tough to beat this area. And so that's part of it too, is just gratitude for how gorgeous it is here, and not feeling like I really need to get away from it. And that was the thing too, is that when I left, I wasn't feeling like I wanted to get out of here. That's not what it was. I wasn't sick of this place. Anything like that. And so also like the reminder that like I have created this life that is my dream life in 95% of the aspects of it. This is why we moved from Saskatchewan to the island, and why I built a business online. Like I have already built and constructed my life the way that I wanted to, that has so much freedom, so many different levels of freedom. And so another opportunity to just be reminded of that this really is pretty spectacular. And while I was there, and I do think I mentioned this before, but while I was in Costa Rica, I did have the awareness of exactly like what I want to build, and what I want moving forward. Because like I said, when we first got to the island, we weren't sure if or where we wanted to settle here. And that intention has become very, very clear about where we want to settle, what type of property that we want to have, and what we want to do with it. And I'm not going to talk too much about those details right now, because it is in the incubation stage and development stage. So I want to keep some of those details private, but pretty freaking exciting, and would definitely dovetail along with uh, along with being able to share the land and the property with others, and to utilize it as a space of regeneration and healing as well. So we're pretty excited about those possibilities. And then the next piece that I'm speaking to you from is that today was the very last day of my husband's his own retreat. So very early on, when we separated in the spring, he ended up booking this retreat in Colombia. So it was an ayahuasca retreat, and lots of preparation leading up to it. Like it's a whole big thing. Like there's a dietary prep, and an internal prep, like all different kinds of things to get ready for it. And then they go there and they spend several days preparing physically in person with a number of processes, and then they went through four back to back to back ayahuasca ceremonies. And so we haven't been in communication virtually the entire time because that was part of it too, to get the absolute most out of the experience that they have the option and are encouraged to essentially not communicate with the outside world to have the best experience possible or to extract the most experience possible out of it. And so I couldn't even tell you how it's gone. There has been proof of life. He made it out. I'm totally joking about that. But that's all I know is that he's probably settled into his hotel for where he'll stay for a night or two and then fly home. So his own preparation and his own process for moving through what he needed to or desired to move through, as we've moved through this big shift this year. And so I've often talked about Costa Rica being like an initiatic, self-guided retreat for me. And this was the way that my husband wanted to move through his process as well. So that's where things are at here, like logistics and whatnot. I think what I'm going to do, because I've written myself a whole bunch of notes, because I want to, I think the phrase that was coming through is I want to provide as much value as I can with this, but I mean, it's not totally what I'm trying to say. I just want to make sure that I'm staying on track and I am tying kind of a more broad lesson to each of these things so that you can extract something from this too. So just give me a moment. I'm going to collect myself. Okay, so I think the next thing that I want to talk about is, I mean, some of the deeper lessons that I've learned about and will take with me going forward. So I did talk previously about my initial intention for starting on the trip and then how life redirected me and let me know what the trip was actually going to be about, the level of preparation that I need to do in order to be able to spend extended periods of time in different parts of the globe. So I think for me, and this is very third line, right? That three lines can really, like our primary learning method is to just jump in and do the things, right? Like we're not big researchers, that we really jump in and we experience life. And so if there are a lot of you out there listening to some of my descriptions that are a little bit like, well, duh. This is very much like the three line process here. And so you can even hear some of the wounding in that, right? Is that like third lines sometimes get shamed for being experiential learners and trial and error learners. So, if there's anybody who already knows more than this, like feel free to fast forward, but these have been my learning experiences. And so the foundation of this is like you don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't know what things are assumptions until you actually experience the opposite of something. Then you go, oh, I didn't even realize that was a baseline assumption for me when I did XYZ. So I think my baseline assumption or what I thought global travel was going to be like, even if I was staying 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is in a particular location, I thought what it would feel like would be kind of getting into a place and just like it would feel like a long time, that you just get to a place and you settle in and then you hang out there for several weeks or months and then you've had your fill and off you go. What I discovered is that it takes way more bandwidth to settle into a new place, particularly if it's quite different. I mean, if it was a Canadian going to the States or something like that, our societies operate similarly enough that it probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. But different like continents, different areas of the globe, there are so many different ways of doing life that just getting into a place settled and integrated for any length of time takes a lot of bandwidth, like a lot. And it's not a bad thing, it's just awareness. So that I came to the awareness and realization of just how much deep research you'd really benefit by for a particular area. The language. That was another big thing. For sure, it was adequate. I was fine. I was functional. It was totally good with my really teeny tiny level of understanding about Spanish. But what I would choose going ahead is to take language lessons ahead of where I was going so that it would be roughly functional, like even traveler level functional. Um, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is that it's a very isolating experience, like I said, to essentially be deaf for an extended period of time or mute, like to not be able to communicate and to not really be able to understand. Like that is quite isolating. And so I also think you miss out on a lot of the authentic experience of the culture, which like if you're not going for that, like why are you going, right? So so I think from that perspective, and then also just simply from a respect perspective to the land that you're going into, like I think we all know how we feel when we encounter foreigners that don't seem to like they clearly don't know the language and they don't know the customs and they're kind of interfering with things and they're not going with the flow. Like there's an irritation to that and it feels disrespectful. And so I think we get to be aware of that too, is that we can have the same effect on other people when we literally don't know their language and haven't taken the time to know their language as well. So that was an eye opener. And again, that might be something where somebody goes, well, duh, but like I've had the lived experience of that. And then the other thing is like it's funny because I've been kind of dubbed a pseudo-official expert on Costa Rica, which 2 months does not make me an expert on any place. But I've had lots of people reach out and ask me questions and about my experience and that kind of thing. And I had somebody reach out to say, like who's considering spending some time in Costa Rica and was saying, like I was looking for what were the adjectives? It was like calm, comforting, and restful or something like that. And I was just like, well, I'm probably not the person to ask about that because I wouldn't describe Costa Rica as calm and comfortable. I mean, it's a wild land. It's a jungle out there. That's where that expression comes from. It's a jungle out there. And it's not an easy land to navigate. There's a reason it is an undeveloped country because developing infrastructure in like Central and South America, like it's incredibly challenging. And so it is an undeveloped country. Like capitalism would have raked that place right over already if it was like a hotbed of development. And so it is a wild and untamed land, which is not a bad thing, right? Like, but you need to understand what it is and what you're going for. And so if you are looking for like calm and resort like, then go spend time in a resort. But then my brain goes to, why would you go all the way to another country to have like a sanitized, scrubbed version of that country where you are literally being catered to, not like integrated? So that's where I go, like, I don't know that that makes a lot of sense to do that. So, I mean, if what you're looking for, like if you need a spa kind of retreat, like just go find something, and this is another Canadian I'm speaking to, like just go find something in your own country or a province or two over. Like come to Vancouver Island. There's plenty of spas here, and it would be very lovely and restful and all of that. But I don't think that I would, from this perspective, I don't think I'd be recommending to anybody to go to Costa Rica to chill out. Wouldn't be, wouldn't be what I would do with that. Unless you're somebody, and I was thinking about this, I was like, unless you're somebody that finds camping relaxing too, but I don't find not having amenities relaxing. So, I mean, if you want to stay in a hut where you're hot, where there are very large insects. There are animals that are very curious and loud. Like if that's relaxing to you, then that is the spot. But if that's not your idea of relaxing, then I wouldn't choose Costa Rica. And there's another thing too, that this was a big eye opener for me because I've heard these terms before, but I've never actually experienced it to see the damage of it. And those terms are gentrification and neocolonialism. And so anybody that I mentioned Costa Rica to before I left and after I came back, they're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing. I love Costa Rica." And I know all kinds of people that go multiple times every year, that kind of thing. And I don't know how much I love and support that at this point, unless it's being approached with the idea, and this was a term I wasn't aware of until recently as well, like regenerative travel. And so what that means essentially is that like it's not extractive and it's not just transactional, that if you're going to interact with another part of the planet, particularly that is less developed and less abundant than where you come from, to go in with the idea of adding to it, of actually contributing to it. And contributing, like I said, is not transactional. Contributing is not just paying the drivers well and going to a resort and that kind of thing. That's transactional. And for us to go there, that's still extractive because that is their livelihood. That's the main industry. The vast majority, and this is again, small sample population, but this is what I was being told from locals, is the vast majority of people are earning a living catering to tourists. Like tourism is the prime industry, unless you're literally hustling on the street side, like fruit stands and selling cookware and things like that. Like there's a big population of Nicaraguans, I believe not in the country illegal or not in the country legally, but that there's a lot of Nicaraguans there who are just selling wares on the side of the road and operating as collectivos, like sort of unofficial taxi drivers and things like that. Like it's unregulated. It's the Wild West. It's undeveloped, right? And so the other element of that too is that there is not a lot of government or structural oversight, which some people love. Some people, that's one of the biggest criticisms of more developed countries is the level of government oversight or interference and that kind of thing. But if you took that out, if we go back in time to when the country was being developed and there was far less systems, there's less policing, justice systems, government, there's less of that. Like we're rebellious teenagers that don't want to be told what to do. If you go backwards and you live without that, it's a little more dicey. It's a little more Lord of the Flies kind of situation where you really do have to rely on your community and your neighbors to take care of each other. And there is a beauty in that. And also, if the shit hits the fan, you're probably waiting hours for any kind of assistance. Or when the assistance comes, it takes forever to process something. Like, there's definitely a level, a feeling of like, dude, you're on your own. So you gotta take care of yourself. You gotta figure yourself out. You need to know how to handle things on your own because you're not just calling for assistance like emergency services. It's just not that simple, right? So it's a big eye opener. Like that's bottom line, end of the story. It's a huge eye opener that's contributed to my feeling of gratitude for living where I live. I truly believe, like I honest to goodness believe that Canada is one of the best places on the globe to live, truly. I mean, I'm sure some of the Scandinavian countries have have things dialed in a little bit better than us, but I am very happy to be here and particularly on this land. And I know that when I do travel again in the future, I know how I'm going to approach it from a much more respectful and contributory way that's really opened my eyes to to how we get to operate as stewards, global stewards, when we come from such an abundant country. Like that's, I mean, we hear these kinds of things our entire life and we see things on television all the time, but absolutely nothing replaces visiting a country. And I would say that not visiting in a resort and a planned out kind of itinerary, that's lovely. You'll have a great time, all of that, but like genuinely living in a place and truly experiencing the culture and what it's like for daily living there is is a massive eye opener. Again, I think it would probably shut a lot of us up and stop the complaining and put our efforts into things that actually really matter rather than sort of like, the phrase first world problems, right? I think it would redirect our energy to what's truly important. So there's been that kind of learning when it comes to travel and going forward and what we're going to be building and anchoring in locally. So we do, like I mentioned, we are going to, we're moving towards buying and purchasing and developing land here around this area, mid-island. So we're very excited about all of that. So again, I'm going to take a little pause and collect myself here. So yeah, it's really opened my eyes to and clarified what we want moving ahead. So that's been really beneficial. And that is tied in and connected to my business. And so there's a couple of big things that are happening in the world right now. Unless you're under a rock, you know that AI is exploding. And so there are definitely some things that I am starting to work on with AI to integrate into my business. So that's very fun and exciting. And interestingly enough, so simultaneous to that, I mean, it's kind of two things. Or it feels like we've got human connection on one side and AI, this explosion of AI on the other. I think they're actually both exploding because what I think AI is doing is uh, really showing and demonstrating what is uniquely human and what really matters about being human. And so I think both technologies are exploding, and the human technology explosion is happening because of the AI explosion. So this feels like this might be a much bigger concept than I want to put into an update, this epilogue video. But there are two trends simultaneously happening where an emphasis on the human and the body technology, emotional technology, spiritual technology, and then artificial technology, artificial intelligence. Those two things are happening because the artificial intelligence is taking more tasks off our plate than ever before. And while a lot of humans are freaked out about, well, it's going to cost us jobs and blah, 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 it's only because we can't see what that's going to open up for human potential. So, I mean, it's no different than, I mean, when coal oil, or am I saying this correctly? Coal burning became the new fuel, and we didn't have to burn whale blubber anymore. Like the whaling industry went away, and this would be the same thing as being up in arms about what are all these whalers going to do? Well, they'll figure something else out, right? Like there's a higher potential to your life than harvesting whales for blubber. And so that's the same thing with everything that we're going through. If your job is threatened by AI or automation, it's because you have higher potential to fulfill. And we just don't know what all of that looks like. Like this whole AI industry is exploding. I mean, it's like the gold rush in technology happening all over again. I mean, it's Silicon Valley. Like it's the new gold rush that's happening right now. And it's just going to illuminate and open up more avenues of human expression that are going to be uniquely human. And so I think it's really fascinating from an evolutionary standpoint, and then also from, what this is going to do to actually really reinforce what it means to be human and the importance of being human and the benefit of expanding consciousness. I think COVID really laid the groundwork for that because the entire planet had to kind of go like, shh, like this is what it feels to be disconnected as a human race, as individuals, as beings. And we kind of went, oh shit, that is not good. That is not good for us. Not good, not good, not good. And we're seeing all of the problems with that. But then we could also see like all of the dysfunction that was going on, right? So it's kind of like, okay, everybody take a break, take a time out. And then that's really when consciousness started to bubble up and more awakening and process and progress and that kind of thing. And and now AI is happening on the back end of that. And so I really don't feel like AI is threatening humanity. I think AI is illuminating humanity more than anything. And so that's another piece that is happening within my business is not only the expansion of the human and the connectedness of the human and things that we might be able to all do together on the island to expand consciousness. That's all I'm going to say about that. But then also, how do we utilize and integrate this technology into that to truly utilize it for the expansion of consciousness? So, some very interesting things happening there. So, I'm excited about that. And so that's lots of progress, lots of awareness, lots of very interesting happenings. And the foundation of all of the work that I do is really about, turning your dharma into dollars, which means you're building your business from the inside out. It means internal infrastructure first. And it was really interesting. I had a client call this week where I had a very clear image of what is actually happening, and it's the chakra system. It's truly developing health at every level of each chakra, uh, so that that foundation can then be expressed outward. And so business, like, so when we're, I don't want to go too far down this road, but each chakra represents um, a particular, I want to say dysfunction or challenge, a particular challenge that once we kind of resolve that or have some solidity there, then that challenge disappears in the outer world and we can kind of build up to the next level. And this is why you hear the expression new level, new devil. But I mean, it's essentially new level, same devil kind of thing, because then we also keep spiraling back around, right? So for a particular level of receiving an abundance, we need a particular level of health and strength in the entire chakra system. And then we level up and we're like, oh, this is pretty good. Now I want more, or to expand. I don't just want to make that sound like greedy or acquisitional. I want to have greater experience. So then we circle back around. So now we're going to revisit kind of each chakra, as we go up and up and up. So it's the spiral of growth, right? But it really is building the capacity of the individual so that that capacity gets reflected on the outside. Now, it is absolutely possible to do things in the earthly and the material plane to build things up, but that's where instability comes from, is when we've built on the earthly plane and we don't have the internal infrastructure, then those outside things collapse. And that's not fun, right? That's the income swings. That's the you get love and you lose love and all of that kind of thing. And so when we push ahead of our internal capacity, that's when we have these roller coaster types of events. And so that's a less pleasant way to move through life. And so the heart of my work is really, it's both, right? It's merging both. It's merging the spiritual with the practical, okay, the energetic with the tactical. And so when we do this, then it's kind of like smooth as or slow as smooth and smooth as fast, right? Then you can really move, but you got to start from this place of being willing to be a little sapling and a little beginner in some respects each time you come around. And so with that, with this theme of revisiting and this spiral of growth and that kind of thing, that's just part of the game. If you're an entrepreneur and you just know that you're being called to this as a life path, then that's the game that we're playing. It is constant, continuous, personal, spiritual growth over and over. And it's not the only place you have that. Like any vocation, anytime you answer your calling, that's what the path is going to be. People who get into relationships, your marriage is a pathway of self-actualization. If you become a parent, that's a pathway to self-actualization, and so is entrepreneurship. So I happen to have chosen all three of them because I apparently really love to challenge myself. So prefacing that to say that this year has been nothing but infrastructure growth for me. And so, I shared a lot of this in terms of what I was navigating with my relationship. And I'm actually just going to take a little pause here because I need to attend to something and I want to make sure I'm like succinct in what I've got to say here. So I'll be right back. Okay, so then these are the big learning pieces, and what I'm navigating, and what was also revealed in coming home. So sort of the next pieces of raw material for my own development. I've got all these little baby hairs sticking out. Um, so to begin with, utilizing, these systems of numerology, human design, gene keys, spiritual technology of Kabbalah, all of these different things. These are aids. I think these are tremendous aids in helping us navigate the human condition really well. Um, Absent of, religious agenda, I would say, because a lot of these things are actually in religions, but religions get pretty perverted in a lot of different ways. And so if you go right to the heart and the root of some of these original teachings, they're very ancient. They're metaphysical technology. They really are. And so they've taken the universe and our place in it and help distill it and help us understand our place in it and how to read it so that we're not fumbling around blind in the dark. It would be no different than if you were a farmer and you decided, well, I'm going to do farming by feel. Like I'm not going to like learn how to understand weather patterns or seasonal shifts or take a look at historic patterns or anything like that. It's like, no, I'm just gonna wing it. I'm just gonna three line my way through being a farmer, right? And learn by trial and error. But when the ancients have already done the trial and error and totally know the seasons and the sequences and all of those kinds of things. And so that's a long way to get to the point of numerology. And this is one of the things, there's a source called Teledipity. It's a free resource. There is a paid tier to it, of course. But if you wanted to just go look at I think it's teledipity.com, T-E-L-E, dippity.com. You can sign up for that and you'll get all kinds of personal information about what year you're in your 9-year cycle and, your life path and like all kinds of personalized numerology information because our lives really do follow kind of predictable patterns. And it can be very helpful to know what stage of a cycle you're in so that you don't lose your marbles inside that stage or cycle. And so for me, this is a 2-year. And so even though mine and my husband's life paths are different because we're 2 years apart, our personal cycles are the same. And so we're in a 2-year. And so basically the theme of the 2-year, like, I mean, there's many things to talk about with the 2-year, but the essence of it is that it's all about interpersonal relationships. And the lesson at the end of the day is don't take anything personally. So, I went into 2025 and I'm like, okay, cool. Okay. Don't take anything personally. I'm like, yep, no matter what, I'm going to be fine. No matter what happens, I'm not going to take anything personally. Okay, that's all I got to remember. Holy macaroni. Okay, so don't take anything personally. Yes, true. And we're going to get tested on this like nobody's business. But when you understand what the test is, you can come back around to it to know and understand that this is building the foundation for the next, what does that make, 7 years, right? Because I'm just at the very beginning, the very opening of this current 9 year cycle of my life. So I'm in the building phase, the foundation stage, right? I'm going to start to come up out of it in the third year, next year, where things will be more apparent on the outside because this 2 year is very foundational. It's very internal. It's going to look like not a lot is happening on the outside. And I mean, at the start of the year, I was like, yeah, no, cool, of course. And I really started looking at internal systems in my business, that kind of thing, which isn't sexy work. It's not flashy. It's not out there, but it's like, you got to get the foundation. I was building business infrastructure, and so that takes a lot of time and energy and investment in a lot of ways. And so it wasn't an outward year of growth, but preparing to have the container stable and available for that. And then it started happening internally too, to where there were, I could feel these upgrades happening internally, and where I was really starting to put the end to a lot of patterns I was seeing, like really take responsibility for how I was contributing to things and like stopping my involvement in and my patterns and things, which in any kind of a system, like if you're dancing with somebody and you stop dancing, then they're going to be like, what the fuck? Where'd you go? Why are you not dancing? We've done this dance forever, right? And so there is upheaval. If you ever stop participating in a relationship, in a situation, in an engagement, in a contract, in the way that people are used to, there is upheaval, there's disruption. And so that disruption, part of that is to not take it personally, right? When people get upset at you stopping participating in things, don't take it personally, right? And I mean, the fact of the matter is that people do get upset when you change your involvement in things, your engagement in things. The first time I really learned this, and there's so many ties and connections to this, I really hope that this is helpful for you to hear some of these very specific examples to translate this into your own life. So the first time I ever experienced this was in a bigger way was when I chose to close my business. And so it was a very personal decision, right? It was something that I needed to do for myself, but there were people around me that were affected by the decision. There were members who would have much preferred that I keep the business open. There were staff members that would much prefer I keep the business open. Um, but I had to, that was part of my path, is to make a decision for myself, regardless of the impact on other people. Because this is the core, this is my core issue that is coming up over and over and over this year to be healed or elevated. I don't like the word healed, elevated into the next octave, because our issues, we keep circling back around. So I'm being met with my next issue of this is over responsibility and over functioning. And so what I want to connect that to also is that that can sound very noble, right? I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I do too much for other people, right? Like, poor me. But what I want to connect this to is in the gene keys, every single trait, the highest octave, the Siddhic octave, Siddhi, there's a shadow to it as well. So even if we display and exhibit the highest level, there's a shadow root to that key in human design, the gate. There's shadows to these. None of us are immune. We all came in with the DNA. All of these things are coded in us already. The experiences that we have activate them. So yes, there's a degree to which we came in real sweet and innocent, but we also came in with DNA, and our experiences trigger what's already within us, and it's up to us to transmute those things into a higher octave. So this is where I don't super love and ascribe to the whole, I'm this way because my parents did XYZ. It's the human condition. It's going to happen anyways. It's a good first level of awareness that, oh, I am the way I am because of how experience has shaped me. Yes. And it was going to be triggered regardless, whether it was a parent, a teacher, a peer, whatever it was, that trigger, that wound, the potential for that wound existed in all of us, and how it was going to get triggered was is almost irrelevant. So boom, it exists. There it is. Now that shadow frequency, when we're living in the shadow band, there are two expressions of every shadow. There is a reactive expression, which goes outward and essentially inflicts pain on other people, a reactive shadow. And then there's a repressive version of that shadow, which essentially means it turns inward and it creates pain on the individual. Now, currently in society, what we do is we put people in prison who exhibit reactive shadows, and we put people in therapy and mental hospitals who exhibit repressive shadows. And we are like, oh, these reactive people are bad people. And then the repressive people, oh, they poor, poor, sweet little darlings. And that is like exactly wrong. Like we need to come back to center on both, where the people who are doing reactive shadows, I mean, can't be doing that, but there needs to be more compassion for that. And then the people who are displaying repressive shadows, we can't just be like, oh, you poor, sweet little darling victim, you're so wonderful. We got to bring them up to a higher degree of responsibility. And so I happen to have a rather repressive version of this particular shadow. Um, so this is for sure connected to marriage and relationship, like, and it's very common, particularly among highly successful women. Like we're terribly capable and functional, and we overfunction. We developed ways to essentially do for other people what they should be doing for themselves so that we feel safe, right? So that we feel a level of control. And so that can look like Superwoman, right? Wow, look at what she does. And I've got, I don't know how many cards I've got and how many times people say, like, really compliment me on my strength and that kind of thing. And then that reinforces it, right? Like, oh, I'm the strong one, I'm the capable one, I can handle so much, right? But then what that means is that I'm doing that for everybody. And I look like the strong and capable one, while the other people who are emotional and collapsing and whatnot look like the victim that needs, help and attention. And so that, it can have that function where it there's an assumption of a lack of humanity in people who are really highly functional. And then they don't feel like they have the opportunity to have down times, emotional times, because that's not what their relationships are built on. Their relationships are built on, because we built them that way, on being the strong, capable, helpful one, because that's what keeps us safe. So then, yeah, go ahead and back that up to family of origin. And, I'm like that because I was parentified early and blah, 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 and that's how I developed safety. Sure. Like that could be what happened, but that's the way I function, right? That's the way I developed a way to move through the world that felt safe and successful to me. So I do think for me in particular, because I am a wide open emotional solar plexus in human design, I think this is quite common with highly sensitive people, is that because we're receivers and absorbers and amplifiers of emotion, that we look like we're having bigger emotion than the people around us, but we're basically like the display for the family unit. Like it's all coming out of us. And so we experience these really big emotions as kids, and that's not okay. And for a lot of our homes. And so, we learn that, oh, when I have emotion, I lose connection, or when I have a need, I lose connection, things like that. And so then we also discover that because we're emotionally sensitive and we can sense when somebody needs something, that if we fulfill that need, then there's connection, right? And so that's kind of how that gets built. That's how that structure gets built, and it's necessary for survival. But then we go ahead and we take that into our adult life. And what that means is that people like me who overfunction, we're a natural match for people who underfunction in any situation. Like we'll just do it all, right? Because we can, because we understand it, because we can. So we feel guilty if we don't, right? Because, oh, I understand why they're that way, and then and so let me do this because I can see it and I can help. And even in the littlest things of like helping facilitate a conversation, right? Oh, I can tell that they're struggling with this, so let me help them see the thing and facilitate the conversation. Like it happens in a myriad of different ways. And so that's what was going on in my past business is that I took everything on, I was over functioning, and so it ends up being to the detriment of self. So that's why it's a repressive shadow, is because you're sacrificing yourself in order to facilitate a result for somebody else. And nobody wins with that, right? And so it tips over from generosity into overgiving, and then it tips falls off the cliff in self-sacrifice, right? So it's deficit. It's keeping somebody warm by setting your hair on fire, right? And then when you're like, dude, I don't want my hair to be on fire anymore, and you put the fire out, they're like, I'm freezing now, right? So, and that's where that expression comes from, is that let me get this right, first of all, is that the only people who are upset with you setting boundaries are the ones who benefited by you not having any, right? And so at the end of that is like, don't take anything personally, right? And so what I was doing in a lot of areas, I was doing this with clients, I was doing this with friendships, and I was doing this in my marriage, is that I have such high capacity that I was taking on other people's roles for them and then being really disappointed when their capacity didn't match what I wanted or needed for myself. And so at the very beginning of the year, I started to really address this pattern, first in client relationships. And so this is where I think a lot of you will identify with this, is that we have a fear of making decisions that are self-affirming because we're afraid of how other people are going to react, right? So no matter what it is, and it's not, like we'll kind of beat ourselves up of like, well, why do we have that? Like, I shouldn't be afraid of that. And, all of that kind of thing. The fear is legitimate. The fear is legitimate because when we do make those changes, there absolutely is potential for people to be really pissed off at you. And until you've got such a solid center, a solid infrastructure in yourself, people being upset with you and wanting you to operate a certain way to keep them comfortable is going to keep you from being authentically expressed. And if you remember, if we go way back, your dharma is you. Your dharma is your authentic expression. So if we're afraid to authentically express ourselves on any level, it's because we are keeping the peace with some aspect of our environment. Because the truth is, when you stop keeping that peace, there will be disruption. There will be. And so, can you keep your center during that disruption, right? And we all watch movies where we're totally rooting for the hero and we're like, yeah, you just got to know, you just got to believe in yourself, no matter what anybody else out there is saying. And just, and we're so uplifted by that. But then we come into our own lives and make a decision where we know somebody else isn't going to be very happy with it because of how they're impacted by it. And then we're like, oh, but I can't do, but not that. It doesn't apply to this situation, right? And so that's what I've really been working with this entire year. And so there have absolutely been consequences of this. And some of the consequences have been that I've had former clients when I simply drew boundaries and not even drew boundaries, enforced agreements. Enforced agreements, right? So how many times have you had somebody come to you and, well, can we do it this way? Or I know you don't normally do this, but what if we did that? Like, because people are used to negotiating with themselves, right? They don't keep their word to themselves. And so they want you to shift and to be somebody different. So you can agree to something and then they'll come and say, yeah, but I thought, we could just change this or whatever. And so when you say no to people, when you simply hold the line for agreements, watch what happens. How do we react when somebody says no to us? And even if, we're very convincing, compelling people who are used to getting our own way, how do we react when somebody holds the line, right? Or enforces a rule or a boundary with us? And so, I mean, that's what happened early in the year. I quit morphing myself and I held the line on agreements and I ended up with public disparagement, right? And it was severe enough that I sought legal counsel for it. And so, can you do that? Like, are you willing to face public disparagement for holding the line on something in this day and age where cancel culture is a very real thing, where Reddit exists, right? Do you know yourself well enough that you can stick to your convictions and your principles without being a jerk, right? Simply communicating what is real and true and holding the line when you know that other people have the potential to sound off on you, right? So that was one of the things. I had another situation with a personal relationship where capacity wasn't met and actually ended up putting me in, like, it created damage for me and my business. And so that was a repeated pattern, having friends and connections that we started to do business together and their actions being out of integrity or low capacity damaged something for me financially or otherwise. And I would always, in the past, um, essentially be the bigger person, or make excuses for them or whatever it was. And so I stopped doing that. And so there was a rupture there. And and then in my own personal relationship, I stopped the overfunctioning there, which is not, again, it's not this pattern isn't noble, right? It's a shadow is a shadow is a shadow. And if we're going to put a reactive shadow in prison, we should be willing to look at repressive shadows as equally destructive and not pussyfoot around them, right? So this repressive shadow, this pattern of overfunctioning is not a noble characteristic. And so I stopped doing that within my relationship, and it did create collapse. Um, and so there has since been repair around that, which is beautiful. And so that is one thing that you will see is that when there has been rupture, when you change the dynamic, there is potential for people to rise to meet you at the new octave. And so even though, I had this one client act like that, all my other clients rose with it, rose with the new standard and are flourishing, right? Even though I had that experience with one friendship, I have many other friendships that are flourishing, right? And even though there was a rupture within my marriage, there was reconciliation and rising, and now there's flourishing, right? So there is new life and a higher octave on the other side of all of these things if you're willing to put up with the disruption and the chaos and the upheaval that is created from you changing your patterns. And so that, that's the process that I was going through up until going to Costa Rica and and then the end of that trip. And then there's new fodder, there's new material for my next evolution of this because making some of those decisions, like decisions that have been for me. And so this is also a filter that I use as a recovering overfunctioner. Like because my favorite thing is it's my fault. Like I'll take responsibility for everything, because that's what leaders do, right? That's what self-accountable, mature, leadership-oriented people do is they take responsibility for everything. But that does mean that you can take over responsibility and take on other people's responsibility. So the filter that I use for is this my fault? And do I owe an apology and do I need to make amends here? So there's a few little categories that I use for this. And the first one is, did I break an agreement or contract, whatever it is? Did I break the agreement in action? Like I said I wouldn't do something and I did it. Or did I break the agreement through inaction? I said I would do something, but I didn't do it, right? Is this a broken agreement? And it could be interpersonally. I said I wouldn't make fun of your eyelashes. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something to even make fun of somebody about. I know that you're sensitive about your eyelashes, and I said I wouldn't make fun of them, and I did. That's a broken agreement, right? Or anytime you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, broken agreement. So did I break an agreement? Um, did I, essentially act out of a shadow? Was I reactive? Did I say something with the intent to hurt? Even if, and we all do this by accident sometimes, right? Like, when we're hangry, say something. Did I say something that I regret while I was hangry, right? Or whatever it is. Like when I was heated, did I say something that I now regret that I wouldn't have said from a calm and neutral place? That too. Did I inadvertently hurt somebody through my action? Like, did I accidentally run over somebody's foot with my car? I didn't mean to. There wasn't intent, but did I accidentally hurt somebody? Okay, well, then I might have some repair and amends to make. Those are situations that we have repair and amends to make. Where we don't have repair and amends to make is when we're making self-affirming decisions. Okay? So when we're making decisions for ourselves that sometimes mean our roles change with people or they are inconvenienced by something. And again, it's not like I said I would bring a salad and then I didn't bring a salad. Like they're inconvenienced, but that's also breaking your word, right? But if somebody is benefiting from your over functioning and you stop over functioning, they're going to be bothered by it, right? Again, because they were getting warmth off your burning hair. And so those kinds of self-affirming decisions, somebody can be very, very, very upset, have taken your actions personally. So just like when I closed my gym, closed my facility, that I even had members say, I quit working out because you closed your gym. I mean, like, not my fault, you know? So, and even like if I was counseling if any of those people were my clients, members or staff members, I would say, well, don't put yourself in a position where somebody else's decision can have that big of an impact on your life, right? Like take full responsibility for your life. And so that's what I mean by when you make self-affirming decisions that other people may perceive that as problematic, inconvenient. Um, if they love and care about you, it can the speed of decisions, and I talked about this on my last video. The speed that you make decisions can destabilize other people if they're not used to making or moving through life that quickly. They can take things personally that have literally nothing to do with them. I mean, this is cancel culture, right? Like, how dare you post that? I'm offended. Like, we need to take personal responsibility for our emotions and our reactions, right? And so, if you've run your actions and your behavior through those filters, did I break agreement? Did I inadvertently hurt somebody when I didn't mean to? Where you can tell you've caused harm by your actions. And I think I had the third one in there. But rewind the video if you need to go back and look at that. But if you can answer unequivocally, like, no, this was simply because I was taking care of myself, then you don't have apologies and amends to make. but you can understand the perspective that and have empathy and compassion for the discomfort that other people are now experiencing because you have changed the relational pattern. And so there is love and compassion for people who are now experiencing pain because of the shift in dynamic, but you also don't take responsibility for it. Okay. So that's been like my biggest learning. So, so yeah, what Jason and I have navigated this year has caused and created quite a bit of upheaval with the people closest to us, and I'm not going to give any details beyond that. We have awareness of it, we have empathy and compassion for it, and we're not taking responsibility for that and for how people are acting or reacting out of that, right? That we all have a journey and a path to go through, and we also get to trust that if other people are experiencing discomfort or distress through our life choices, that their connection to us is part of their path and it's part of the learning that they needed to go through. So we take responsibility where we can, we make amends where we can. And then the other piece as sovereign individuals is to really let other people have their own experience of life and to trust that they have as much connection to source and to transmutation as anybody else. Okay, so don't do God's job for other people. Okay, and so that is the theme of the 2 year. Don't take anything personally. And so, I'm able to speak about this now. I'm able to have a little bit of humor on it, but it is ongoing. This doesn't feel to me like a resolved situation. And it has situations, plural. It has also challenged me at some of the deepest levels. If anybody was watching it from the outside, they wouldn't necessarily feel like, oh, that was a really severe situation. But what it did for me is it's like it's dancing all over my core wounds. It's dancing all over my core wounds. And that was actually one of the things that I wanted to address too, is stages of healing, is that I even get frustrated about, okay, so when I say dancing all over my core wounds, like when I, finally started to unpack some of these things that I interpreted as very hurtful, I could see where it was coming from. Because you go back and in your childhood, when was the first time you experienced this? And, all that sort of jazz, right? And so I know what situations and events were the seed of these things for me. And I still get frustrated. I'm like, but I've dealt with this. I know this exists. I've dealt with this before. Why is it coming back again? And so, why? Because you can go back and you can see where the wound was developed. But what also happens is compensation, scar tissue for that wound becomes an operating system. And so for me, that operating system is the overfunctioning. And so for whatever reason, at age 48, 47, 48, and it's astrological, it's probably some return is coming back here for me, planetary astrologically. At the age 47, 48, as it's year 1 and 2 in my numerological cycle, this is when I have the internal capacity to revisit this wound to address it even further. So, yeah, I can see where this wound started. And now I understand the behavior that is coming from the wound. And now that I've made a behavioral change, I am interacting with the third dimensional reality differently. There is going to be third dimensional reality shift, upheaval, dysregulation, chaos before it settles and the new can be formed from a different place, from a place where I'm building and developing new connections, not from over functioning. Hallelujah. Can I have a digital high five, please? So that's what's come out of this. And again, I'm in a very calm, alert, stable place. Last weekend, I was so deep in the processing of this that I thought I was going to lose my mind. I hadn't been that upset about something in like ages and ages. Like it hit some core stuff. And so the thing is that, just being willing to be with this, being willing to transmute these kinds of things. And this is why people do plant medicine in the first place, because it's an accelerated version of this process. And so until you know how to transmute things like this, you just kind of go through life at surface level and da 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 da. So I'm not currently called to work with plant medicine right now because I understand how to let life be the medicine at this point and really be with the emotion, transform it, transmute it, come out on the other side with that, turning lead into gold, the ultimate conductor, divine intelligence. And so that's what I'm moving through at this point. I don't want to be like, it's done because there are relationships that need restructuring, repair, um, reinforcements, right? And so I have faith that that can happen because I also know how to hold the version of the highest level of those relationships, which I am holding. And so I'm certainly holding that vision and the faith of that. And one more thing, I want to tie this into your charts, your gene keys, is the sphere of purpose. And I've spoken about this before, but reinforcement never hurts. Your sphere of purpose in the gene keys. So if you go look up your chart, your purpose is twofold. So that key is the reason for all of the relationships in your life. And it's also the reason under the reason why clients or the people in your life come to you. That's the frequency you're delivering to them. Like that's the secret code, the secret sauce you're delivering to them. It's the medicine in the cheese you're sneaking in. And so for me, the sphere of purpose, the lowest expression, the shadow expression, is immaturity. And so immaturity is adolescence, when you think the world revolves around you, taking things personally. Nothing anybody does actually has anything to do with you. So I'm speaking to myself at this point as well. So as an immature adolescent, we think everything revolves around us and people are acting the way they're acting because of us when they're not. They're acting because of their lens and their capacity. So if we're immature, we're acting as though the world revolves around us, or we're hurt because we think the world revolves around us and we think somebody's actions have something to do with us when they actually don't. Even if they're saying, you did this and you made me feel that, blah, 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 blah. It isn't. It hasn't, unless you've actually done something. But many times, also as a 5 line, and I've got 5th line in that sphere, is it's a massive field of projection. Okay. So that sphere of immaturity moves into a state of expansion where, we grow out of that and we go, oh shit, there's a whole stuff here. And it doesn't revolve around me. And I'm a part of it. And I can see how I contribute. And I can see how my actions create this and da 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 da. We start to understand that we're part of a whole. And then after that, it moves into a state of superabundance. So superabundance is the state of wholeness, of I want nothing, I need nothing, I am everything. And so to bring this into concrete form with what I am navigating is that all of my relationships in general, in particular in the 2 year, are helping me understand the shadow of immaturity to be able to alchemize that into the gift of expansion and to alchemize that into a highest expression of the city of superabundance. And so, intellectually, doesn't that sound marvelous, right? But in the meantime, it's projection central, right? It's building my capacity to be so certain in who I am and my value and how I operate that no matter how loud things get around me, I can hold that center. And so the fact that it is now happening in my closest relationships mean that I can handle that because it was happening further out, right? Like when I talk about doing that with my gym and my business, that's still people that are a bit removed from me. And then it started coming in closer to friends and close connections, into clients, and then into marriage and family. So that is the area that I am getting to alchemize this shadow to a greater degree in myself. And it's only building the capacity to be more loving and compassionate because it's building that in me first, right? All of these things are always helping us come into greater alignment with ourselves first, sovereignty, self-compassion, self-love. And then the more of that we have, the more of that we can radiate. So I know, like, intellectually, it's building this capacity in me, but oh my goodness gracious, oh, being challenged with that and feeling the urge to revert to old patterns, to old safety mechanisms is super challenging because I also know that I've got clients who are dealing with family members who are their greatest challenge. I've got people who are, changing their business, pivoting, or coming out of career into business who are scared to put themselves out there. It's all the same shadow that if we claim our voice and our sovereignty, how are people around us going to react? And that's what this whole game is, like self infrastructure, self-certainty in the face of external chaos, right? I mean, this is even the image of Christ, right? Like Christ was crucified. So can you be so certain of your eternal conviction that you would be willing to be crucified for who you are and what you stand for, right? And there are minor crucifixions in many areas of our lives, right? I mean, that's what cancel culture is. It's the new version of public stoning, right? So, so that was the big lesson at the end of all of the logistical things. Yeah, I just want to pause here and just check to see if there's anything else I wanted to say. I really wanted to, this is quite a vulnerable thing for me. I mean, I know that any of you who have watched it and who have commented and said anything to me really appreciate it and really connect with a lot of what I'm saying, even if the specific situations aren't exactly the same. There's a lot of these themes. It's not unique to me, right? These themes are amidst all of us. And this is also me living my design, right? The 3-5 being willing to be seen in the messy middle in the process. Um, so the general feedback, and I mean, if it's repellent to some people, that's correct, right? If some people are like, oh my God, this woman is trying to help other people, like, no thanks. I mean, if it's repelling those people, that's fantastic. But more than anything, people are seeing my humanity and my capacity and my ability to help other people because I'm living this and I'm not pretending that it's easier and shinier than it actually is, but it's worthwhile, right? And so, and you can see that too from all of the expansion on the other side of these difficult things that that I'm going through and I'm navigating right alongside all of you, right? I'm no different. I might just have an extra year or two of experience that I'm happy to share as you navigate your path as well. So that's the epilogue. I mean, I hope I don't go like epilogue after epilogue. Maybe I'll be able to turn this into like lessons from the trenches or something like that, turn the series into that. But I also know that so many of you who followed along really, wanted to know how everything turned out. And so this chapter is concluded. It is really beautiful. The new octave of my marriage is beautiful. The new vision for what we want and what we're going to create is beautiful. The new relationships that are being formed and that I'm forming on the other side of not being so much of an overfunctioner are really beautiful. The new business revelations and downloads business and my dharma and my way to serve in the world and to help. Those downloads are beautiful. Clients are thriving. So, I mean, it's just, and kids are doing amazing in their own lives. Like they're doing really big, beautiful things in their own lives. And so I'm so thankful for this crazy human journey. It gets hella painful sometimes, but I'm willing. I'm willing to do the really deep, hard, painful stuff because I know how worth it is on the other side of it. So if anything, I hope it's given you that, the courage to keep going when things look super haywire and sideways. There's always a reason for it, always a reason. It's always the new material for the next level. And so hopefully you've got somebody that can help you through that, or tools or systems or processes that can help you through each of those things, because the journey is absolutely worth it. Because I mean, what else are we going to do? Like seriously, scroll our phones? Like we might as well get really engaged in life, right? And to really make the most of it and just to see what we're capable of and how much beauty we can experience in the world. That's what I'm here for. So I think that's the end. I think that's the epilogue of the Truth Files. And I'm sensing it is. I'm sensing this puts the bow and the button on it. So this will be this chapter of my life concluded. Thank you for being along with me. Thank you so much. Seriously, if you're here at the end of this video, I think it's been pretty long. Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to connect with you fractally, astrally. It's so wonderful to be connected to you in any way. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. And I will catch you at some point on the other side in the future doing other things. Ciao for now.